The Colts aren't the only team preparing for life after Peyton Manning.
Top pick Kendall Wright showed up at Baptist Sports Park for rookie orientation.
Coach Bobby Petrino was fired over an embarrassing scandal involving...
Local sports coverage on television has changed in recent years. A variety of factors prompted layoffs and reduced coverage.
The internet has given people many more choices.
You are watching Sports Center.
They can get all the highlights from ESPN. Why do we need you?
On air or on life support. Are we witnessing the demise of the local TV sportscast?
It's sort of sad to see because I'm a sports fan, but there are a lot of people out there who don't share my sentiments.
The NBA playoffs on ESPN.
Everyone's used to getting information when they want it, not when the sports anchor is going to give it to them.
The Predators were supposed to be in Bridgestone Arena when...
In recent years, many TV stations have done away with a sports anchor, sports department, or deleted sports altogether from newscasts.
Golf's unofficial fifth major, the Players' Championship, wrapping up Sunday at the TBC at Sauger.
The Penn State University Center for Sports Journalism conducted a survey in 2006 called The Local Sports Broadcast, a Dying Segment. Researchers polled 216 sports directors, anchors, and reporters at stations in the country's top 50 television markets. The results showed many believe their segment on the local newscast could become extinct.
The Memphis Grizzlies fans are able to visit with some real...
So what has caused the decline in sports coverage? Many cite the economy, an increasing emphasis on weather coverage over sports, and the internet as social media and mobile devices put sports news in our hands at any time. Former WSMV Television Nashville news director and current Lipscomb University professor and executive in residence Alan Griggs says, all the research shows sports is not a high priority, even with Southeastern Conference and professional sports in Tennessee.
I'm not really surprised at how sports has been relegated to a back seat. I don't think that's being too flip. They have the Sunday night sports extras, which sort of wraps up the week of sports, and that obviously is a research-driven type of move that TV stations make. But during the week, now they're relegated to the last part of the newscast.
The pattern of downsizing TV sports departments and eliminating anchors is so widespread that when one station recently hired a national talent search firm to help it find a new morning anchor, it was swamped with audition videos from out-of-work TV sports anchors. Many former sports anchors are now working in news, talk radio, or public relations. One of those is former WSMV sports anchor Brad Knoop, who now works in media relations for the University of Louisville. Knoop disagrees with the concept of declining viewership for local sports.
It's a decline in viewership of local news, and that has to do with all the other avenues in which people can get their information, not just about sports, but about news. Everything's online, everything's on TV, everything you can get through social media, so there are more places for people to go that are active with their news and information. They want to go get it, and they can find it without having to wait for a 5 or 6 or 11 o'clock newscast.
The rise of social media is one reason for a decline in sports coverage. Another is the economy. Professor of Media Studies and Director of Mass Communication at Belmont University, Rich Tyner, says the economy has led to the consolidation in media, reductions of staff size, and while he says local news is popular with advertisers, the audience is declining.
All of those things combined, reducing staff sizes through consolidation, they're doing everything that they can to increase growth in revenue, growth in profits, and cutting staff is part of that. And then on the other side, when you see the fan interest kind of changing from this mass appeal interest to more of a specific segmented kind of appeal, I think all those things working together, here we are. We reduce maybe the size of our staff, and then ultimately we reduce the length of our sports cast.
First, the news happening at this hour.
Some describe the decline of local sportscast in 4 letters, ESPN. How does local TV fight the ESPN effect and find its own niche?
Well, the Overton High School community is splintered over the naming of the school's football field.
For Tennessee State University professor Tommy Boris, it has to be more than just covering local high school sports.
I think if you're working in a local sports department, you'd better find something ESPN is not going to do, and that means you may have to get away from the traditional, as they call them, stick and ball sports, and go look for the unusual type feature stories that ESPN is just not going to do.
For Austin Peay State University professor Barry Gresham, the ESPN effect means you really don't rely on the local sportscast anymore the way many used to.
I remember as a kid growing up, you had to stay up for the 10:30 sportscast maybe to see a score. Now there's a ticker that runs constantly. And just go to any of the ESPN stations, you get your sports instantly with all the mobile media. It's really more of a feature opportunity. Or I'm going to watch because they're going to interview a student athlete that I know from Tennessee State or from Austin Peay. You just don't rely on the sportscast for anything hard news type sports at all. If anything, it's more of a feature or an in-depth piece you might watch on a Sunday night.
And it's what one of those suspended players said that prompted today's edition of Between the Lines from Rudy Kalis.
Alexander Radulov was in the...
Nashville sports anchor Rudy Kalis has worked on air for WSMV television for 38 years. He used to have 6 minutes for sports during the hour-long 6 p.m. newscast. Today that is cut down to 2 minutes at the end of the newscast. When the Titans came, they expanded their staff, but in time there have been cutbacks. Kalis counters the ESPN effect because no longer can sportscasters focus on scores. They must make their presentation more engaging for the casual fan.
The ESPN doesn't do local sports, so there's always still a place. If you are smart enough in what you do, the people here want to see if it be Titans, their stuff. We do that sort of news. We have them meet, understand people, get introduced to them, cover them. We try to do the high schools or the colleges and stuff. There is a place for local news because there are parents out there, there are schools, there are communities that want to see that.
Kalis says more stations have gone to the weekend expanded sports shows as a way to compensate for less coverage at other times.
Friday nights, we've gone back to flying in a helicopter to make sure that we do an extended high school. It's the thrill of being able to go to a community, show them games from that area. There is a place that ESPN cannot touch that is local. If you want to cover the national stuff, sure, they're on it. They can see it anytime they go online. But there's still a place for local sports coverage. There's still that human element where they like that. They don't want just facts. There used to be the thing where they make us all homogenous. We're all the same. But at the same time, people enjoy getting to know people that they trust and enjoy the work that they do, and there's a place for them to give them their sports.
Austin Peay professor Barry Gresham says the problem with a shrinking sports report is no depth of coverage in the average weekday sportscast.
If you want to go in depth, it's the Sunday night shows now or the things available on the station website because you just don't have any time. Really, Monday through Friday, your weekend anchor typically gets more airtime now than your number one anchor.
With some affiliates only having 2 sports reporters, it may mean that it is difficult, using Nashville as an example, to have one cover UT while another covers Vanderbilt, cover other teams, and get it all on air. To combat this, Gresham says many TV stations now obtain video from other sources.
We can get their video. They're making it available. We don't have to send someone there. It almost guarantees them 1 or 2 clips will be on their newscast because it's there. They don't have to send someone, and it cuts down on their time factor because they don't have that many working in sports now. Before, you used to have to really fight for coverage. You still do now with that limited time period, but if you provide it, they'll show it now.
Professor of Media Studies at Belmont University, Rich Tyner, says we are losing a lot of the mass appeal for sports.
But you're getting a lot more niche appeal. While on the one hand, you might have the local television station reducing the time spent on sports. On the internet, you have this huge growth area of niche things like the small college is now doing video streaming. And so while that fan base is maybe smaller, they're going there to get information.
Anchor Rudy Kalis says the future of sports has to be local.
You see, television viewing audience, 50% of the audience has limited interest in sports. We broadcast, ESPN narrowcast, but we have to find a way to do sports in a way whereby the person who has limited or no interest in sports won't turn you off. So you try to be creative in terms of, let me do the human interest story. Let me give you an angle that you may not like sports, but you're still willing to watch and not turn me off. That's the challenge that we have.
Lipscomb professor Alan Griggs and TSU professor Tommy Boris agree that there will always be room for sportscast.
It may be bare bones, like close to what we're seeing today, but I think there'll still be an interest for a sportscast. And I still think that news directors are looking for that personality-driven sportscast rather than the content-driven.
I don't think local sports will ever completely disappear, but only if local sports media make the medium and themselves relevant to the local audience.
Former sports anchor Brad Knoop says viewers will watch if you have interesting content.
If you have good stories, if you gather the information and present it in a way that is interesting enough to a viewer or to someone on social media or the internet, then they're going to pay attention to what you have to say. And you have to know that all of these venues of which to deliver the information are the ones that you're going to have to use. You can't just do one or the other. You're going to have to do them all.
Fulmer becomes just the third Tennessee football coach inducted into the Hall of Fame.
The University of Memphis Tigers about an hour.
The Titans traded up to get as a tight end. He went under the radar.
Belmont's Rich Tyner says sports is more popular today than ever.
It's just the way that people are getting that information is different. And I think even the type of information that people are wanting and getting is way different. The kinds of things, the kinds of information that they're interested in has changed, and the way they get that information has changed. And to me, that's the big difference. It's not that sports is any less popular than it was.
At some stations, sports is a vital part of the on-air product, while at others, sports remains on life support. For Tennessee Matters, I'm Terry Likes.